Hello, everyone, and welcome to Insights Fusion podcast, where we dive deep into the world of startups, innovation, entrepreneurship, artificial intelligence, all of the stuff that shapes our future and the business. I'm your host, Vygandas Pliasas. I'm a fractional CTO management consultant, helping companies to make great products, streamline, build great performing teams, and work across the US and UK. In each episode, we'll explore challenges, breakthroughs that all industry leaders are facing, and we'll try to learn something that we could steal and apply to our own lives and businesses. Today, I have a guest, Pete Mohr. He brings over 30 years of entrepreneurial experience to the microphone, helping business owners turn frustration into freedom. As a certified exit planning associate, Kolb certified consultant, and a host of Business Owner Breakthrough podcast, Pete offers relatable stories, proven frameworks, and practical strategies that our audience can apply right away. Also, Pete specializes in simplifying the complexities of business ownership, whether it's transitioning from operator to owner, building teams that thrive, or preparing a business for a successful exit. He provides real-world tools like his 5 Ps framework to empower our listeners to achieve clarity, freedom, and success. So welcome, Pete. I hope we haven't missed anything.
No, thanks so much. I'm excited to be here with you, and most of all, with your listeners. And hopefully we can have a good conversation and get them thinking a little bit about, how could I have a little more freedom? How can I have a better business? And I know a lot of the stuff that you do really helps automate and set those things up for success. Part of what I do is help them get their thoughts around even what might need to be automated and all of these sort of things, because it's one thing, we have all these ideas in our heads all the time. And it's all, most small business owners are idea people, and you're kind of rolling through this. But if it just stays in your head and you can't get it out into some sort of framework to make sense of it all so that you can give it and align and assign the process to it and the automation to it and all the different things, then it just stays in your head. And that's not so great for the growth of your business and the, the growth of your life as an entrepreneur either.
Definitely. Since I have a couple companies myself, I'm really curious about all of that automation. So are we talking about automating, let's say, something like N8N, AI agents, all of that stuff, or are we talking about some other kind of automations?
Well, just in the last few years, think of how many automations have come more mainstream, right? They've been around for a long time, but I'm not an automation expert. You are. But what I like to do is kind of start thinking about, and we can use automations, even something like ChatGPT, to start getting the flow going, right? And if we're thinking about this concept that we want to do in our business, part of the issue is just getting started in your thought process. And so how are you using automations maybe to help you get some thoughts out? Because as you know, not every automation is perfect, and certainly not the idea generators are always perfect. But from these different perspectives, it's like, if it can get you going and get you started into your thought process, and then you're prompting it properly to move through some of the things that you need to do, it's going to expedite getting stuff done. And I know a lot of your listeners are startup based, and I work more with existing companies as opposed to startup based. But even from a startup perspective, it's like, how much can we actually get done? Well, one early example a couple of years back, when something like ChatGPT just started, you can build a business plan in 15 minutes that would take you 2 weeks to do. When I started business 30 years ago, getting all the facts and figures together, getting all the stuff together, putting it all in a concise plan. All of these things make entrepreneurship easier and make entrepreneurships quicker to start. and make entrepreneurships sort of something that I'm not going to say everyone can do, but it's the idea of getting going isn't as daunting as it maybe once was.
Oh, yes. Well, I even tried making a business plan with ChatGPT. Interesting. So I noticed that you put more accent on thought process automation and like catalyzing that initial thinking process. Could you elaborate a little bit more? Like, because
I've come up
kind
with
of get it, but
I've come up with analytical tools to get the ball rolling because I like to sit down at my desk and I use my iPad with my stylus. I actually prefer to write things down when I'm in the initial thought process. And then I take it to a digital because that's just how I prefer to scribe it, and it kind of burns it in my memory. And then I take that and I'll digitize it essentially to move ahead into the next thought process. But whatever it may be, whether we're building a process, whether we're building out any of these things, even here we're on a podcast. We digitize our podcast and then we put it into Cast Magic, and Cast Magic does a whole bunch of stuff for us. And then, just thinking about, I used to write all my own articles. Well, I now edit most of them. I probably write about 15 to 20% of my articles because the database is so big. There's 200 different articles in there that it knows my thoughts. And so what I need to do now when I'm doing a podcast and we're taking that down into articles and emails and all the other stuff, I really become more of an editor where I'm adding in my own words, my own phrasing and all of that stuff. And I do it for my business too. I'm not only a business coach working with other business owners, but we actually have 2 shoe stores. So for the example of the shoe stores, there's all kinds of stuff that we've used automations for and continue to, and will always down the road use automations for, even stuff like descriptions for our shoes and different automations that are connecting through Zapier for, fundamentals from our point of sale system into our accounting package and all sorts of different things there. So, from the CTO side of things, there's so much to be done these days, but you have to start, from the business owner and business, senior business leadership team. First of all, we have to, if we don't want to do it ourselves, we have to have somebody do it for us. Not everybody needs to know AI. Not everybody needs to know all that stuff, but you need to at least have somebody on your team that's really good, right? Or an outsource partner like you that's really good, that's going to be able to come in and tell you and inform you and really have the understanding of what can be done so that you can then lead your business further on. Because if all you're doing is being mired down in every decision, well, automations can do a lot of decisions for you these days, depending on what it is.
Oh, yes, definitely. So being messing around with like small, you could say, cheaper decisions that are not that critical.
Yes.
It's really good. It's really good.
It is. I have a saying that I use a lot, and it's basically this: decisions need to be made at the lowest possible level of your organization. So if you look at your organizational chart, or as I call it, an accountability chart of who's all accountable for what, you always want the decision made at the lowest level of the organization. Why do people need to go up 3 or 4 levels in an organization to get an answer for something that should have been dealt with down here? Maybe even an automation be able to deal with it, right? That's just frustrating the customer. It's frustrating everybody involved in that process that goes up and down the chain of command. So everything we're trying to do is get it out into a systematic way that's really trying for decisions to be made at the lowest possible level so your customer can be satisfied at the first point of contact.
It's true. I have a story. So company started implementing customer support. So they made AI agents for customer support, and all the people got afraid that there will be no jobs anymore. And what happened is that AI took over all the easy stuff, all the easy decisions, and started creating loads and loads of tickets to the customer support humans. And now they have even higher workload and they have to hire even more people. So it kind of took the part of the job, but the speed increased a lot. So it was supposed to help people a bit.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure if it really helped that much them. I'm pretty sure it helped business a lot.
Well, that's part of it, right? And I mean, I think when we look at it, you mentioned in the intro the 5Ps framework that I have.
Yes.
And the 5Ps framework really is understand your promise. And that's the promise that you take your customers from whatever their problem is through your services, your goods and services, to a better life, because people only pay if they see a better life. If they see you as helping them enjoy a better life in some way, whether that's buying a steak, whether it's going to a movie, whether it's buying services, they want to see, if I'm going to put my hard money down, they want to see what the outcome is going to be. So that's the promise. And then what we need to do is we need to align our products, or if you're a service-based business, services, to that promise, align your process to that promise, align your people to that promise so you can have the right amount of profit. And when you have the right amount of profit, now you can start thinking, do I want to buy some more freedom? Which basically means, am I going to have other people do things for me? Or am I going to pay for an automation service to look after certain things for me? But the idea is, until you get to that profit point in full alignment and satisfied the customers at the lowest possible level, there isn't any money to be free. So you need to get the profit going in order to free yourself up of the time and some of the commitments so that you can be working on those bigger levels, just like you talked about with that customer service side. What we did there was we put in, or those people put in a program that takes those lower level decisions off. So those customer service people were elevated to the next level of problems. And when they did that, they were growing the business. So now if they were growing the business and they would have still had all those lower levels on top of the mid-level stuff that they're dealing with, they would have been even busier. And that's how we have to look at things as the business owners and the executives in our business too. If we're making all of these decisions at the lowest level and not letting other people do it, we'll never be free of those decisions and to focus on the bigger things that are going to incorporate growth within our companies and growth within our lives as business owners.
Definitely. Very interesting. So is this your own? Because it was mentioned that it's a signature framework, this 5Ps.
It is. It's one that I came up with several years ago and have written a book on it called The Business Owner Breakthrough. And it's what my podcast is. The name of the podcast is around that. It's sort of a core principle. I like to come up with frameworks, and I often will come up with frameworks to get that business owner thinking, or the business leader thinking in different ways that are going to say, oh, we need to look at this, or we need to look at that in order to move ahead. And then once you've got your thinking right, now you can come up, if you are using outsource AIs and different things, now you can come up with, you've got the language that you want to use to input to start building some of these things out.
Interesting. Very interesting. I like to get back to that, creating the ideas and the process. How could you give more examples, like how your clients are using it, maybe?
The 5P model?
Huh?
Yeah. So, I mean, just the different, depending on what problem, because what I am as a business coach, I'm a problem solver essentially, right? So I help them get their head around the problems, because I'm not actively a consultant working for them and doing it for them. My job is to get them thinking and talking about what they need to do so that they can go and activate. So I'll use these different things that I've come up with that helps them get their thinking around it. So I'll use another one in accountability. So I've got another framework, and it's called the CMA. And the CMA really is, as a business owner or business leader, you need to be working this year and every year on mastering these three things: communication, management, and accountability. You need all three. And we need to be master communicators, both to our outwardly focusing to our clients, inwardly focusing to our team, and also focusing on any of the outsourced suppliers, other outsourced suppliers that help us deliver our promise. So if you outsource marketing, or if you outsource human resources, or you outsource CTO, any of that sort of stuff, those people need to be in full alignment. And you need to be the master communicator, because they don't know what you're thinking if you're leading the business. You need to be a master communicator. 2, you need to be master of the management structures of those. And 3, you need to be the you need to be the master of accountability. And most are decent at the management side. There's often a lack of good communicators, and there's often a lack of accountability in a lot of small to medium-sized businesses. And on the accountability side, one of the frameworks that I use, which helps us put stuff into process as well, because we're thinking in the accountability, like, if I'm not going to do this, who's going to do it? And let's just say, you asked for an example, let's just say I'm no longer going to take care of marketing. I've been looking after marketing and I'm tired of it. I don't have time for it. I got to pan it off. Well, I come up with a model called the 4 A's of accountability. And the 4 A's of accountability are these: assess it, address it, align it, and assign it. It seems basic, but if you think of that, I'm going to start thinking about getting rid of accounting off of my accountability plate and onto somebody else's. I'm going to assess it. Well, what's involved with all of this? What am I actually doing? I need to know how many hours, what's involved. I need to have process in place, all these things. Address it. Address it means, okay, well, this is where we're at with it now. Where do we want to go with this? And if I am going to hand this off, where do I think we need the things that need to change and the things that need to work better and the things that we want to carry on with? Align it is who in the organization is actually going to take this on, or if we're going to use an outsource partner, what are the companies that can help us take care of this? And that's its own little piece. And then the last piece is, and this is the one that often gets lacked, it often doesn't work out so well, you need to assign it. You actually have to hold that person accountable. And this is where a lot of small, medium business owners tend to let things lax. They're okay with getting those first 3 done, and they'll actually assign it and they'll say, okay, you're now the marketing person. But then they're completely hands off, and they don't want to see anything about it anymore because they're so fed up or tired with it. By the time they got to that point to release that accountability, it becomes a real problem. But as the leader, you need to have your dashboards in place, and you need to know those key principles, those key founding information, bits of information that are going to help you make the bigger decisions from that accountability. And this is all the stuff that comes into play. And that's why I really think from a leadership perspective, the overarching principles are hone up your communication, hone up your management, and hone up your accountability. And it's most often communication and accountability that are the most lacking for small businesses. And the management piece of that is going down, and operating piece of it are the 5 Ps. Understand the promise, make sure it's still in alignment. Do people still want what they've always bought from you? Because a lot of times things change. And if you haven't changed that, it's time to look at that. And then we're aligning our product. Oh, maybe those products aren't valuable like they once were. Got to go back and look at that. The process. Oh, well, maybe new things have come on board that do it even better. Maybe we should change our process. Some really bad language that you hear out there is, well, we've always done it that way.
Oh, yes.
That can be sort of crippling to growth.
Definitely. I think it would be really healthy to go through that 5 Ps framework at least every half a year, I think, to check what you're doing.
We do it in every meeting. We have a meeting structure, and it's what I coach to. So you want to basically be going through it from a yearly perspective, your quarterly perspective. We do it on a monthly perspective and a weekly perspective as well. So basically you're working through all of those pieces And since I wrote the little book, I've added in one more that's often on the plate. It's called promotion. So yeah, we do need to talk about promotion as well. So it's actually 6 P's now since the book. But from our meeting structure, we always add that promotion piece in there too. And we talk about profit, and we talk about all of the different, we talk about the people. The people aren't just your ideal customers, they're your ideal teammates, and they're your ideal outsource suppliers. So is this outsource supplier still working for us, or do we need to look for someone else? Is this person in accounting still working for us, or do we need to look for someone else? Are these customers truly our ideal customers? And if they aren't, should we be looking for someone else? Like, those are ongoing conversations that you don't just have once a year. You might look at the big picture once a year, but we want to take it down and hit our quarterlies, hit our monthlies, and hit our weeklies with it too. So every meeting structure really revolves around those 6 things that are taking us to make our year and taking us to grow what we've planned on.
Interesting. Imagining a large company, let's say there's a board, CEO, the executives, let's say there's VPs, those like senior director, other directors, and then let's say managers and individual contributors and leads. So from the very top goes down, and who is the last to benefit from this framework? I'm guessing it's not probably for ICs, right?
I think everybody benefits from it because it becomes your communication structure. It is the way you communicate up and down.
So you involve the whole company, like from the top to bottom.
Right.
Interesting.
And so what happens is, as you break it down, you pillarize the things that you're talking about. So the meetings in marketing, they may not be talking about operations issues, but we're still taking it up to the next level. And the next level is, these are our yearly goals on these different things. And these are, we're still talking about the same things. It's the same breakdown at any level of the organization. So even when we look at our 5P or 6P now structure, adding that promotion piece in there, it's like, how are we promoting this? Even if we're talking about technology, how are we promoting the fact that we need to include AI in our business, within our business, would be the promotion talk on that one. Whereas the marketing people might be talking about promoting the newest piece of whatever it is you're building, or the newest service that you have to the world. It still needs to be talked about in that pillar of the organization. And then we're taking all of these things back up to whatever levels in our continued meetings that we have. But that structure stays the same. Does the promise stay the same for that individual? You could have an overarching promise for the entire global company, but still have smaller promises for each individual pillar or division of it too. Just so long as they're in alignment, because we're being held accountable, we need to have alignment, the 4 A's, right? So are we still in alignment with the overarching theme? Yes, we are. Okay, well, let's carry on. And if we aren't, then we got to figure that out before we carry on, or else we're wasting everybody's time.
I feel I'm learning something, definitely. I think this is useful in my own job, for sure.
It's so and this is not technology. This is just thought process, really. You can use technology to enhance it. But when we start thinking, and this is, remember we talked about communication. This is communication of what the leader wants. I mean, the leader, the CEO, the business owner, whatever the case is leading that business. So it has to disseminate through however many people, whether there's 3 people there or whether there's 3,000 people there. It has to get up and down that chain of command so that we can respond to the shareholder. And sometimes that shareholder is that leader, and sometimes it's a public corporation, whatever the case is. But how do things move up and down that organization? Well, it really happens in the same sort of fashion, but we need to have some sort of way. So our meetings literally start off by saying, hey, is the promise still in alignment? Yes, it is. And we're going through the different things. Let's talk about our product or our service. And if there's nothing to talk about, that's a quick conversation this week, maybe. The next one is process. Oh, well, we've had to renegotiate how we do our purchase orders and all this stuff. So our process is changing. Okay, well, let's spend a bit more time on process this week. and we have 2 new people in our department. So let's talk about people in that department. We don't have anything to talk about because everybody's satisfied on the customer basis, but we're still going to hit people. And this week, the people portion is about our 2 new people, or the one person that is going to leave on maternity leave because she's going to have a baby, or whatever the case is. But now everybody's in the know. Everybody understands that these are all the moving pieces of the business. And if that's the case, then we can go ahead and do what we're accountable for in our individual jobs as part of that accountability structure in order to make everything happen all the way up the chain, no matter how big the chain is.
Nice. Yes, and if you keep doing it all the time, and as you mentioned, you might not always have all the pillars to be discussed, all the steps, but if you will keep doing it, it won't be that much of a burden in the call, in the meeting.
It's not. And everybody knows we're going to talk about these things, and
everybody comes
once
prepared.
You start doing it in your regular meeting rhythm, it's like, we're going to hit every one of these. Are we good with this? Are we good with this? No, I've got actually something to bring up in that one. Oh, okay. Are we good with this? Are we good with this? Are we good with it? And then at the end of it, it's like, okay, let's adjourn the meeting. We'll take our sort of notes away from it, and then we're going to send it back up the list if there's somebody else that needs to know about it, or send it out to the other divisions if they need to know about it because they're part of the bigger decision making. But essentially, we've got those key things covered in a way that everybody in the organization understands, so that we're working together for the common goal of delivering the promise to the client, because that is the common goal. If we don't have a client, we don't have a business.
Word. Yes. Really. I think I will buy the book. It sounds really something awesome. I need also.
Well, it's available on Amazon, so you should be able to grab it over there.
Could you remind the title so also viewers could find it?
Yes, for sure. It's called The Business Owner Breakthrough. It's a quick read, and you'll probably be through it in about 2 hours, but it goes through this whole idea of the 5 Ps and how you want to set it up and start thinking about your business. Or even if you're, like I said, even if you're in one of the pillars of the business, you can start thinking about how you can use it within your pillar, so that as the leader of that area of the business, like, this is the language we're going to use. This is how we're going to start talking about it, start meeting about it, so that we cover everything, so that I know what's going on, and so that everybody else knows what I'm expecting of them. And then we take it down into those accountability structures, that 4A, and then we have clear, aligned accountability structures that everybody knows in the communication side of things, who's responsible. All of these different pieces of the puzzle make up a good operating business.
Cool. All right. One more thing. So in a brief, I noticed that there was mention that you need to be exit ready, and that every business should care about it, even though they are not exiting, and they might be even far from that. So What does that mean? What's the idea behind it?
Well, as you mentioned in the intro, one of the things that I do as a business coach, I'm a certified exit planner. So I help businesses get ready for exit. But the reality of it is that every business should be ready for exit. You should start thinking about the exit plan right from day one. And if you haven't given it much thought, that's okay. But when should you start? Today. You should start thinking about it today, because someday there's a guarantee. Someday you will exit your business.
Yeah, hopefully.
You will, no matter what. There is a day down the road that you will exit your business. And I'll tell you, 50% of businesses, the owners exit not when they want to, but when they have to. Everybody dies.
Interesting. Oh.
Everybody dies. Another thing that causes a lot of business exits, divorce. With 1 in 2 marriages breaking in divorce, often divorce causes the failure of a business, because they need to split equities, and there's all sorts of different things, and it causes the disruption in a lot of small business. Here's another one. Disability. If you got cancer and you're out of your business for 6 weeks, 6 months, a year, is that going to cause major disruption in your business, potentially to the point where you would lose your business? Or if you got in a car accident and you couldn't actually, if you were, both of your arms were broken and you were in cast and you couldn't type and you couldn't do anything, or whatever the case is, you couldn't walk, would that cause problems for you? It does for a lot of people. So there's a lot of reasons why people need to be exit ready. And if that kind of thing happens to you, and let's hope you're not one of those people that it does, but a lot of business owners hang out with business owners, and you probably know someone, if you're listening to this now, that something like that has happened to. It could happen to you. And if you're not exit ready, you're going to leave money on the table, because if something like that happens to you and you do need to sell your business, or somebody else needs to sell the business for you because you're incapable of doing it, they need to have everything ready. It has to be ready to go, or else you're going to leave dollars and value on the table. And if that's the legacy that you're leaving to your family, you're not giving them what they deserve or what you had planned for.
And if you would get, let's say, into that accident, by the time you get to the sale of it, it will sustain probably significant damage already, because everything will start, go down, things will start breaking, maybe people won't get salaries. So,
but that's what we started off by saying. The idea here is to move you to an area where you are working on the big things, and everything that's actually generating the money and all of that sort of stuff is being done by people other than you. We're trying to align and assign accountability and authority to other people that can take care of the day-to-day operations for you, so that you can then work on the bigger pictures. And if you are away, and I'll give you a prime example, I'm taking off in about 2 weeks' time, and I'm going to go away for a month because I want to actually go away and enjoy some time off. Well, I've done it for a couple of weeks here and 3 weeks there and stuff like that, but I've never done it for a full month before without having any contact with any of my management team. And they know that this is a test for us too, to see how good our systems are, to see how good our accountability is, to see how everything happens without me at all involved in the shoe store business for an entire month. And so, I already have a pretty good idea how it's going to go, because they already are running most of the things for me. So I feel very confident in leaving for the month. But at the same time, I've given them sort of this idea that, hey, listen, unless the place burns down, I don't want to hear from anybody, because we're testing this as a risk thing for my business and as an insurance policy for my business, that if anything ever does happen to me, the business carries on and goes through. The back end of that, of being exit ready, is, okay, well, my wife knows what to do when she's got to take care of things. She knows the lawyer to contact, the accountant to contact. She knows the two people on my team that really look after things, has a good relationship with them. We've talked about all of this kind of stuff. Like, this is exit planning. We know where things are at. We know who they could potentially contact if there was a competitor basically that might be interested in buying the business. There's a list of several different businesses there of people that may be interested in buying that they could contact. She knows a business broker that she could get a hold of. So all of those kind of things are listed out. Even in my case, it's not 100%, but it's probably 95%. And for a lot of people, they're at 5%. And my goal for them is to really say, hey, listen, you do have to give this some thought. You do have to spend some time on this. You do have to have things exit ready, because if one of these things happens, death, divorce, disability, distress, these partnership disagreement is another one. If you have a partner and you guys butt heads and one of the partners says, I'm out, that causes a lot of business failures.
Yeah, half of operations goes away.
So we need to plan for this. You can't expect it not to happen, because it does happen, and you probably know someone it's happened to. So your best bet is to start planning for this kind of stuff today, so that you're ready to go if and when it happens. And then, you have the choice of exiting when you want to exit if your business is exit ready. I'll flip it back to my own again with Shootopia. I really don't, I work about a day a week at Shootopia. And the rest of the time I help other business owners and do my coaching. And from the business perspective, I mean, the Shootopia is pretty much exit ready, but at the same time, for what I'm putting in, I get a good return. So I now start looking at it as an investment as opposed to my job. And I'm saying, well, do I want to keep this for another year? Yeah, because if I took that money and invested it somewhere else, I'm probably not going to get the same return as the amount of money I get invested in my own business. So I'll keep it. But if I did want to sell, or if I did get a bad diagnosis and maybe got cancer or something, or maybe I got divorced, or maybe I was disabled and I had to make that choice, at least it's that far ready and I don't have to spend, and the other people around me that I love have to spend and go through the aggravation of getting this thing exit ready.
I think many people has this thought what would happen, but somehow I'm pretty sure that not many are doing anything at all. And it sounds like if you start from very early days, it might have completely different path that you will be going.
Yes. But I think the bigger takeaway is if you haven't started yet, it's time to start, because you will exit your business one day. Yeah, I mean, it's a guarantee. So it's just how you exit is the real thing that we need, and when. And those are the things that we don't maybe know right away. That doesn't mean the business doesn't need to be exit ready. And it doesn't need to be set up with the proper process, with the proper people, with the right, everything in place so that it's very easy to look at it and say, yes, there is value in this business and it may be valuable to someone else other than me as well.
Okay, interesting. So you mentioned a split of the team, and this, I have a question. So what are your thoughts about, so there are a lot of people, a lot of owners I also met are doing a lot of things, like working, doing a lot of operations, getting tired, and the business grows. There are more sales, there are more clients, maybe a new team, and they, jumps around everywhere, like they are everywhere and doing like million different things, and like it sounds like very complicated and basically completely opposite to what we just talked about. What are your thoughts about that?
I think anybody can be as busy as they want to be. I think one of the things is that when we're in the startup mode, and I've been there, I've started business, I have been there for sure, and you're all out. And usually there's not a lot of funds. So usually you're trying to save the money where you can, and you feel that the best saved money is if you do it yourself. And we get habitualized, just like building any other habit, whether you smoke and 21 days later you're a smoker, or if you drink 21 days later you're a drinker, whatever the case, any habits that we have, we've created habits. But business owners get in the habit of working long hours. Business owners also get in the habit of making every decision, partially because we felt we had to, and sometimes we did have to, but partially once we get over that stage and the money does start to come, we start thinking, well, I've always done it. Again, it's that same sort of idea. This is what I've always done. Yes. So I can't release it. Nobody knows how to do it. I'm the person that does that. Well, I can tell you, in almost every situation, there is somebody in the world that's better than you at doing whatever that thing is. Nobody is the master of everything in their business. No one is. We might be the master of a certain piece, but we are not the master of the entire business. There's some, and I'll use bookkeeping for an example. I have 2 business degrees. I'm good at bookkeeping. I'm good at numbers. I understand it well. I don't want to do it, and I don't like it. So I can help people, and I can, give them advice and all that stuff around bookkeeping because I'm actually good at it. and looking at his income statement, looking at a balance sheet, tearing apart those things and kind of saying, oh, what's with this? And looking at the oddities and all of that kind of stuff. I mean, I get that. But do I want to input all of the stuff? No way. One of the first things I did was get a bookkeeper. And, for 30 years, I've basically had bookkeepers. I'm not done it, even though I'm capable. And my bookkeeper, when she, I'll use an example, because when she, figures out the visa at the end of the month and everything balances, she's like, woohoo! Like, that's a big thing for her. She's like, woohoo! And for me, I'm thinking, oh my God, there's not a chance I want to spend 2 hours of my time going through the business visas and checking everything off and making sure everything balances. Like, even though I can, it's just not the best use of my time. And I'll tell you what else. With that employee, that person, that team member that does that, it is the best use of her time because she loves it and she's good at it. So what we're trying to do as leaders is we're trying to take everybody out of those areas that either they're not good at or they don't love. And I've got an exercise that I put a lot of my clients through called Love It or Leave It. And it's like really list all of the things that you're accountable for. And let's start parsing off the stuff that you don't love to do and you're not good at, the stuff you don't love to do and you are good at, which is harder to get rid of because you're good at it and you feel good at it, but and then the stuff that you aren't good at, but you like. And as the business owner, if you really like something, even though you aren't good at it, maybe you want to do a bit of that. That's fine. But you shouldn't be doing the stuff that you don't like and are good at because there's probably someone else that can take that off of your plate that actually likes to do that work, like the book work. And then you're moving into this area, which is, I love doing this and I'm good at it. That's where you get growth. You get growth both personally as a leader, but you also get growth within your team when you allow others within your team to do that too.
Agree. And I think a good leader should be able to find and delegate to smarter people. And it's like, that's basically the job, I think, to find smarter people and put them in the right places.
Absolutely. But we don't. And this is the thing. This is the thing that stops growth a lot of times. Because we feel as though we need to still be involved in those decisions that we don't need to be involved in. Remember, we started by saying decisions need to be made at the lowest possible level?
Yes.
We got it. As the business grows, we need to push that down and let the decisions be made. But we still need to have that dashboard. The other side of it is if we just assume that everybody's making the decisions without actually having some balances and checks in there as the leader, that's a problem too. So we end up starting to look at dashboard numbers instead of detail. I call it moving from detail to dashboard.
Oh, that's a very good advice. Like, worst thing you can do is assign two accountable people for the same thing, so nobody will do anything.
Yeah, and they're passing the buck, right? They're passing it to I'm not involved there, or I'm not involved there. That's that 4 A's of accountability. You have to align it and assign it. And when we assign it, there's one person that's in charge.
One, yes.
Yeah.
So I've seen many times where it's like, oh, this guy knows this part, the other guy knows other parts, so they kind of both, and then you need to explain.
Somebody needs to be in charge. And this is the communication and accountability pieces that we need to communicate who's in charge, and we need to hold that person accountable. And they need to understand that they're in charge and they have certain accountabilities. So we laid out that process and we lay it out in their job description and everything else. And this is your charge. You're now in charge. This is the thing. So many people want the title, but until they're given the charge, that changes things. So some people will rise to the occasion of saying, I am in charge and I'm going to own this, and other people won't. And that's the thing. There's a lot of people out there that want a title but don't want charge. And that's a cultural thing in a small business. And if that's the culture, that's a problem. In a small business and a medium business and a growth business, we need to have people that want to be in charge and want to, to run with that and to also be accountable, so that we're structuring that into potentially their salary, right? Their salary could be dependent upon that, depending on what they're in charge of, and should be, in my opinion. So a lot of these different things, it's how we're structuring our business for success and for, like we talked about, from the exit ready business for exit potentially. Like if you're the one that's making all of the big decisions in your business and somebody wants to buy that business, they're looking at you saying, well, if that person leaves, then who's going to make the decisions? As opposed to, if that person leaves, everything still happens. I feel pretty confident about this business now, as opposed to, if that person leaves, I'm not sure whatever is going to happen.
So you also need not only to appoint somebody to become capable of making those decisions, but you also need to make sure that that person is also doing the same down the chain, because if that person leaves, they must grow the basically replacement of them, like the new decision maker.
They have to have the process in place too. I'll give you an example. So I've got two people that pretty much run my operations for me, two ladies. One's named Michelle and one's named Jen. Michelle gave notice a couple of weeks ago. She's going to have a baby, and we're super excited for her. And it's going to be her first baby. I'm in Canada, and in Canada, you're allowed to take up to a year off. And then if you want, you can take an extended 6 months. So up to 18 months off, and we have to hold their position for them. And she's a key person for me. And she gave me 6 months notice saying, hey, I'm going to have a baby in July. So, she's awesome. But if she's gone for a year or 18 months with her baby and then comes back, we have to have our process in order. And we have to have all of the stuff in order so that whomever is going to take all of her accountabilities, she's one of my top two people. If somebody other than me, and I'll take some of her accountabilities probably off of her plate, and other people will take others, and we're going to outsource some of the stuff as well. But ultimately, we need to know what all those accountabilities are that she does every day, so that we can now realign and reassign those accountabilities to other people on the accountability chart, so that everything happens. And we have 6 months to do that. So I'm feeling pretty confident. She's getting all of her process really honed down. And even the stuff that was a little bit gray, she's like, oh, I did a video on this today. I've done the manual on this. If this happens, this is how it's done. It's all there for the next person when she's gone to knock that off, finish it, and accomplish it the way she would do when she was here. And when you have good process in place, when you have good accountability in place, these are the kind of things, and you have a culture of accountability in your business, that kind of stuff happens. Like she treats the business like her own. She didn't leave it till, a month before she's leaving for maternity. She told me 6 months in advance and said, listen, I'm going to be leaving, and let's start planning some of this. But she is accountable for her job. She knows her position of authority in the business. She knows what it means to the business when she leaves. And she's there saying, listen, I want this to go as well as it can possibly go while I'm off.
She will prepare all of you so you wouldn't mess things up. And when she's back, it would be easier to take it back.
For sure. Right?
Yes.
Because at least at this point in time, it's her intention to come back. So she doesn't want to start all over again after being with me for 10 years and building all of this great stuff that she's done with us. She wants to see it through and make sure that everything gets done while she's gone. But it's the same whether I'm gone for a month, or the same if for our listeners, if you're gone for a week. If you have your phone attached to you the whole time you're gone on a vacation, then that's not a vacation. You're just working from somewhere else in the world.
True. That's actually terrible. I've been getting messages in the beach. Like I'm sitting, under umbrella. It's hot. nice see. It's like somebody is like, oh, this guy did that. There's that problem. Somebody forgot something. It's like, oh man.
But as business owners, we allow our team to take 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks holidays a year. Why shouldn't we be able to?
It's weird. It's just like strange. You feel like when you are back, you might not find what you left.
Well, then you got some work to do. And the work is,
Definitely.
I got to clean up my process. I got to make sure other people know what they're doing when I'm away, and cross-train people and have accountabilities in place and all of those things, so that you can feel like you want to take some time off. You want to take off. You deserve time off too as a business owner. And I'm talking to everybody listening to the show. You deserve time off. And, work when you have to work. But if work is 365, 24 hours a day, that's a problem.
Definitely. Completely. Oh, another question. So I've been thinking, so we were talking about accountability and all the structuring. And so is it RACI models that would be easiest to, put it on paper, who's doing what and who's responsible, who's completely accountable, who's just informed somewhere around?
Yeah.
Or there's like any smart way?
Ultimately, an accountability chart looks like an organizational chart. So depending on the size of your business, will depend on how crazy that can get. If you have 140 people to plug in there, you might have to have, a few different trees there. But again, I'm tool agnostic, I guess, is that you use whatever tool works for you in order to get it out there. The biggest thing from a leadership perspective is that it's in a way that people can understand from your communication side of things. We need to have this in a way that everybody can understand. I'm a big believer of posting your accountability chart in the office where people go for lunch. Like, it should be there. And when you have a new person, that accountability chart gets updated. And when somebody leaves, that accountability chart gets updated. Everybody needs to know at any given time who they need to talk to get the decision that they need to get in order to do the stuff that you've asked them to be accountable for. And if there's any ambiguity there, if there's any sort of question, that's a problem. And that's a leadership problem. The leader has to really make sure that everybody understands where decisions get made. Because if they don't, the leader makes every one of them. And that's a problem.
Yeah, a big one. So today we learned a lot, and I think this is really actionable. And like we discussed 5 P's framework, which also includes 4 A's framework. So it's like 5 P's could be 6 P's now, talking about promotion. But basically, it is reassessing what is the promise, what is the product, what is relevant, and basically it's like a cycle. Also, we discussed that it's really wise to be exit ready. And if you get into that mindset, you will reshape your business differently. It will have direct impact on your workload and how many decisions you have to make.
For sure.
It's like we covered really a lot, and we can actually start doing some transformations from today. So, all right. Is there anything else you would maybe want to mention to the audience?
I think, if you're interested in any of these concepts, we had already mentioned the book, but you can go to Pete-Mohr, and the spelling of my last name is Mohr, so Pete-Mohr.com. And there's a yellow button there, Speak to Pete. I'm happy to hop on a call with you for 15 or 20 minutes to kind of go through the frustrations that you may be feeling in your business. But also, there's a bunch of other stuff there too. And it links to all my other sites, my podcast, the Exit Ready business, which is Readiness.com, which is all around that. Colby Coaching, which is another thing that we didn't talk about today, but it's all around your people and having the best people in your business. So much there, lots of free downloads. So there's lots of information that you can get to improve your business. My goal is to help you enjoy a better life. And if you think of it, as we cap this one off, most small business owners got into business to begin with because they said, if I have my own business, I might enjoy a better life. Maybe I don't want to work for somebody. Maybe I don't want to be told what to do. Maybe I want to make my own calls. Maybe I'm okay with the risks involved. Maybe I want to set my own time and do what I really, truly want to do. The question that I have for everybody listening is, if you're not already doing that, then you have some work to do. We need to set our business up to prop up the life that we want to live as business owners, as opposed to us always propping our business up. And if you find yourself, like I said, 24 hours a day, 365, propping your business up, holding it up there with all of the things, then maybe we should talk. Maybe we should actually start getting some of the stuff out of your head and onto paper so that we can craft a few things, align some accountabilities, and get your business ready so that you're enjoying the life that you want to live as a business owner.
Thank you. It's very well said. Really, really good words. Thank you very much. Thank you for sharing your experience, frameworks, and how to fix everything. I hope people will get in touch with you. And yeah, it was a pleasure to meet you. And for who's viewing or listening, follow, subscribe, and we will meet in the next episode with another awesome high-end expert in the field of entrepreneurship, business, management, and optimization. Thank you, and have a great day.